Get started. The time is 7 o'clock. Call the planning commission meeting to order. We have roll call, please.
Grant.
Here.
Denkert.
Here.
Hutton. Mathias.
Here.
Boscovich. Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Go ahead. I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the June 19th meeting?
I'll motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion there? Those in favor of approving the minutes from June 19th say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. Okay, moving into our first action item is a CSM for Mishkovich. Never pronounce it.
Yeah.
Mishkovich Lands LLC. Is anyone here from there? No?
No.
Okay. All right, so this is first step to a housing development, portioning off part of the property for the first two stages of the development. I assume they're splitting the two lots at the same time in the same CSM?
Correct, yeah, you can kind of see the two, lot 1 and lot 2 of the CSM as provided with the extension of Parkside Street where they're going to put the dedicated right-of-way. Rather simple kind of two lots for the development with the lake parcel or the pond parcel being right here as well. So this just splits it and allows them to move forward with the next phase, which would be the submittal of zoning plan unit development, which will occur shortly after this meeting, probably next month.
All right. Any questions or motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the CSM for Mishkovich Lands, 2-lot creation.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any issue from admin or legal?
I had none.
There is no more discussion. All in favor of approving the CSM for Mishkovich Lands LLC, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, moving on to another CSM for an extraterritorial Southwood Park Association.
I can describe this one.
Go
So
ahead.
this one came to my attention in my office. If you recall, about a year ago, the Southwoods or the Annie Star Woods was sold to the Southwoods Association by the city. There was like a restrictive covenant we placed on that in the deed for a sale of transaction. If anything ever happened there, Southwoods ever sold it, the city would be, we would basically get it back. Because the city has to sort of own that property, but Southwoods Association purchased it from us with the intentions of adding it to the Southwoods and maintaining it. They had always done that. If you remember some of the history there's always this one encroachment, as you can see here on the map. There was to the north of the property, from the Dietrich property, a fence encroachment, and I believe even like a deck. There's a deck encroaching on what was the city's property, okay? What they have done is they have worked in agreement with John Dietrich to take this 0.12 acres right here and swap it for that 0.12 acres to eliminate the encroachment, allow him to basically have the property into what was the Annie Star Woods, but then him provide this property here, which actually allows for a better connecting path. So they have worked through that. So this is a simple swap of 0.12 acres.
In the township.
In the township, involving Annie Star Woods.
I'll motion to approve the CSM for Southwoods Park Association.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the extraterritorial CSM for Southwoods Park Association, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, moving on to number 3, rezone application and conditional use permit for Ripon Event Barn LLC at 835 Liberty Street. This would be conditional use as well as B3 neighborhood business overlay on the property.
Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself again from all discussion and vote.
Thank you. All right. We can start, Wayne and
My name is John Blazel.
John Blazel. And you are representing him as
That's
attorney?
correct. That's
Okay.
correct, yes.
If you'd like, where we left it last meeting was Wayne was gonna come back with some more details on the project. And if you'd like to update us on those details?
Sure. I'm not sure where to stand.
Wherever you like.
You can sit down as well. And
Yeah.
there are plans that are right here if anybody wants to.
Yeah, some of the information that I wanted to get to you was in the form of written material. I provided a site plan for the property, an elevation sheet that shows what the buildings will look like when some of the renovation is completed. Another plan shows the landscape plan that was prepared by Landmark. I also left off a picture of a farm that has a white roof and red paint, the lower part. And those are the colors we would probably end up using for the project, assuming that it would go ahead. And then there were a couple other pictures of the property.
So you should have, sorry, just to,
Yeah.
I'll project these up. You have copies of them. There's one packet with some information and another with just these two on a smaller scale for you to see, so, sorry.
And so Wayne, they've got that behind you too, so if you want.
Oh, yes, okay.
Or have
Whatever you want.
Adam put up whichever one you want to talk about so everybody can see exactly what you're trying to tell us.
Okay, well, this is a landscape plan, and the primary items for the landscape are, here's the Crystal Creek, and we're taking the area 75 feet deep from there, and we took out approximately in excess of 40 dead ash borer trees, and that was done with a professional firm that knew what they were doing. There was also a professional person that was sent by Fond du Lac County to see what we were doing around the water, and that person approved what we were doing there. In addition, after the trees went down, I've planted in the last 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, 40 trees along here, and the intent is to keep that in a park-like setting. We also leveled the soil and seeded it, and amazing, we hit the weather just perfect. I didn't even have to sprinkle. We had rain almost every day or every other day. It was, and the grass really came up and looks good. Along the State Street, we're going to have the normal trees that would be along a street, and the same up on Liberty Street. We're also, this is drawn not quite the way it's going to end up. We're going to have berms here that are probably about 70 feet long, 15 feet wide, and about 3 feet high. There'll be 3 of them along State Street and 2 along Liberty. They will have, after they're 3 to 4 feet tall, they will have, I would call them bushes that are, most of them flowering or somewhat attractive. So There'll be actually a kind of a somewhere between a 6 and an 8-foot barrier that might be considered almost a fence, because it would prevent, there are 2 or 3 homes right along here. There are no homes down here, no homes over there. There are 2 homes here. This one already has evergreens that are 20 or 30 feet tall all the way along here, so we're blocked from them. This property owner is the only one that we really have contact with that that has to be worked out in some way. This area here would be a parking lot that would be grass only, and there's some, it's almost like fencing that you put it on over the soil so that the cars can drive on it in wet weather, and it would always look like a lawn. That would be the intent. It's a little expensive, but I'd rather do that than put in blacktop or concrete. This is the house that's there, and that's being renovated and should be completed by the end of October. It's a 4-bedroom salt box, approximately, I think, 2,200 square feet, about 75 years old. The barns here were originally a part of the Schultz Honey Farm, and that business was started in 1901 and it terminated in 1990. Since 1990, these buildings have been vacant, and they need a lot of work to bring them back to a satisfactory condition. All 3 of them would be in the project. This one would be an open-air pavilion, open air from about 9 feet down. Every one of, I did I did give a picture of what the ceilings look like in each one of these buildings. They are the very wood barn look that are rather attractive for each of the buildings.
Right here.
Yeah, that one. Let's see. I guess that covers, there may be some questions later that I'll be happy to answer.
Wayne, why don't you mention the amount of parking that you're gonna be supplying?
Okay, there's enough space here to cover, to provide about 60 cars. And the capacity of what we're gonna be doing in this building primarily is where the activities would occur primarily. The limit is approximately 100 people. So 100 people would probably, 60 cars should handle that. So let's see,
Maybe go back to the other one. Just describe it. There are other new plantings that you're doing other than the perimeter?
Well, all of this will be planted. All of this will be planted. It'll be botanical garden type. This is all, the trees are already in. There will be a small, the house is here, there will be a vegetable garden right about here. No, it's right here. A vegetable garden, just normal vegetable garden. Other than that, some of these trees are, some of them are in existence already here. A lot of vegetation, I don't know, just of all kinds everywhere.
And so essentially
around the buildings, for sure.
No new construction?
Well, there is, this is an extension, it shows up on one of your drawings. This extends out, I think it's 12 feet, something like that, might be 14 feet. And that's the major entrance and exit to the building for the public. This is the backside toward the house, and this side would be concrete, and the caterers are in the smaller building. There are three the plan, the first plan that we had shows all of the buildings lined up. Yeah, that one. This one would be used by the caterers. This is the one that would be used by the general public. This is open air, and that would be used probably if there's a hot summer day and it's 95 degrees, we might not want to be in that building. So some of it would be outside. The area between the two buildings is where bathrooms are going to be put for both male and female, and they're designed to be handicap accessible. It shows it right there.
And then Wayne, why don't you talk to a little bit about the months that you anticipate being in operation and
The event business is a lot different than a normal, let's say, a licensed restaurant or a bar. They operate probably at least 10 to 12 hours a day, at least 6 days a week. Probably 60 hours times 52 weeks, more than 3,000 hours anyway. And we would probably have, we would be operating from May 1st until the end of October, which is 6 months. And because we're not insulating, we're not providing heat, they're just barns, they're shells. And no insulation, no drywall, keeping them looking like a barn. Those facilities, because of that, will not be operated during the winter. And when we have an event, generally the event will be on Saturday, and you might have a little prep work or something that goes on Friday night. Probably not more than 10 to 12 hours. And you have a day of setup for tables and whatever else that particular entity that's using it needs. The event would occur, and then you have a day of cleanup, and then you have a kind of a gap for a few days, and you get ready for the next one, setting up and having it. So the result is, even if we had a full 26 weeks with 10 to 12 hours each weekend, it's less than 300 hours. And if we have 10, I think there are more than 10 or 11 bar licenses out there, and we have 3,000 times 10, at least 30,000 hours of other activity. We're only asking for somewhere around 200 actually. 200 not asking for, we would have somewhere around 200 to 300 hours of activity during the year. So the property consists of 5 1/4 acres. The house, I said, is 2 stories, 4 bedroom. The barns, the large one is 2,700 square feet. Everything would be on the ground floor. The small one is 720 square feet, and the pavilion would be about 1,800 square feet. So we're asking for a conditional use permit to be, so that we can use the existing property for an event center.
how late do you anticipate events to run? Do you have a thought on what you would?
Well, the noise ordinance provides for no amplified noise after 10:30, and we would certainly comply with that. I would want to make sure everything is shut down by midnight, and there would probably be some cleanup after that, but the event itself, I'd be willing to, in the contract with whoever's using the event that night or that weekend, the restriction would be that they've got to be out by midnight.
And that would be midnight on Saturday or Friday night?
Friday or Saturday, both, yeah. Mhm. So the intent of a event center is that it's there for, again, family gatherings of all kinds, anniversaries, graduations, weddings. We hope that there would be not-for-profit organizations that would use it, church, educational, medical, business of all kinds. We would hope that that's the way it would end up.
For those other nonprofit groups that you're
Yes.
gonna try to get, I assume those will be weekdays, other days of the week.
Well, I'm not sure about that. There wouldn't be alcohol for most of those anyway. That wouldn't be an issue, and
But for those, if they were to land on a weekday.
they would have the same restrictions of time and everything.
Be a more restrictive time frame for weekdays, say 9 PM.
Could be. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it because I didn't foresee much of that ever happening. But I'd find a way to make the city happy with whatever happens during the week. So the home is being renovated and should be done by the end of October.
How does the house fit into the plan?
The house will just be a part of the project, one way or another. We may have an office in there. We may have, if there's a wedding, probably the women would use that for some of their activities. If the conditional use permit isn't granted, we have to determine how to use the house, and we haven't decided that.
No, just curious how it fit in the plan.
Yes. I guess if I own the property 100%, so I have to decide what to do with it. I sold my business in 2005, and I'm semi-retired, so I'm doing things that I never intended to do by getting involved in something like this. But I've done a lot of renovation of historic buildings, at least a half dozen in my life, and I enjoy doing them. If the conditional use permit is not granted because I own the property, I don't intend to get into any business of any kind. I don't want to be a developer. I don't want to build houses. I don't want to build anything, but I would work with a developer, and I know a few of them who would be happy to come in and build single-family houses or duplexes, or if the city wanted multifamily, we'd consider that. So I guess the city has to decide what they want there. Either one for me. I thought the buildings should be saved, that's the reason. Buildings, that whole project was historic enough that it should be saved, and that's why I'm doing it. If the city doesn't feel that that's appropriate, then I'm happy to move on in the other direction. I think that covers most of what I have to say. But happy to answer questions. I think John can help me if they get too difficult.
Liquor license?
Yes, I would want to have the liquor license. I don't think we could book weddings without it, and some family events and probably some other things. I think it has to be there.
That would be the plan to get it, because otherwise it's just too limited, the number of events you could have.
And then with the liquor license, you're aware that you, as the operator, take on the responsibility of controlling the alcohol on the property, and liability does fall to you if something were to happen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was in the restaurant business pretty heavily in my life, and I had to live with that, and I complied with it always.
So you're aware of the restrictions?
Yes, I am. Mhm.
Good.
Is there any available liquor license in the city?
Or two.
Or two?
At our last meeting, we had discussed, or it was brought up, that the driveway placement maybe could be.
Oh,
be
that's,
modified.
yeah, that,
It looks like it already has been.
That is on the.
yeah, the plan is to take it and put it across the street from the city garage, whatever that is, or the white garage right next to it, because the residences don't start for another 50 feet beyond that.
It's hard to tell on this drawing.
Okay.
Exactly where.
I think on the old plan, they had it like in the middle of the parking lot, and they moved it more to the west.
Oh, so it was like a line where what the garden was.
Correct.
Yeah, the architect did that without talking to me about it, so.
And you, looks like you've covered the issue of headlights shining in the neighbors with the berms and vegetation.
Yes, I think so. That's why I'm making that 3 to 4 feet tall, and the bushes are 2 to 4 feet. And they'll be very attractive. So I'd be surprised if, once the neighbors see that, that they would want a fence. But if they still wanted it, we would do it.
I have a question about the paving. You're saying, turf, so for the parking lot, for the
In the
pavement,
parking
for
lot. The
You're
parking
saying
lot,
turf?
yeah, the parking lot is
savers?
probably gonna be used, 20 days a year for, when the people are there actually in mass. If there's 20 days, it's probably a lot, and there might be a rainy day or two, and that's why we're putting that grid in the grass that prevents the tires from sinking in mud.
My understanding is it has to be a hard surface for the city.
With the products that he's talking about, it does
That's
allow
considered-
for a hard surface with drainage through.
Okay.
I haven't seen too many of them around here, but very popular on the East Coast.
Yeah,
I've seen them on commercial properties, just not resident, or,
So
big commercial
in my
properties.
opinion, it would meet the hard surface requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a question along those lines because the B3 overlay says that it has to be bituminous, I can't say that word, or concrete, basically asphalt or concrete. So in the conditional use, I think we would have to call out that as an exception
Yes.
to meet the B3
yes,
overlay.
Okay.
If it were to go through, I think that would need to be called out specifically.
I would agree.
well, I would expect to do it. It's, the reason you don't see it very often is it's quite expensive. It's just as expensive as concrete
I
almost.
agree
Yeah.
with that. Generally, having a turf looks better than a parking lot, in
Yes.
my opinion, so.
Sure.
um,
We are doing quite a bit of concrete in the back of between the house and the barns, because that's where the caterer comes in and they wheel things around. So there'll be still quite a bit of concrete.
Is there any concern, this is primarily a question for Lud, I think, 60 parking spots. Does that meet the one parking space provided for each 200 square feet of gross floor area?
I think somebody did the math.
Yeah,
Exceeds it.
I believe
Like 18.
it was that rule would require 18 or 19
18 or
spots.
19, okay, so
So
we're
it's
well
well above
above, okay, just, again, looking at
Here's the
the
layout. If you
requirements.
wanna just show the layout.
Thank you.
Oh, the layout inside the building? Yeah, this was drawn up by the architect, and this is the inside of the big building, 90 feet long, 30 feet wide. And this is on the end where we're putting the bathrooms. The small building is right up here against it. Inside of this area, he shows 12 tables of eight people each, and a head table, and these stairways won't be there. As an alternate, he's doing away with a head table of any kind, and he put 5 tables up there. I'm not sure we'd ever use it that way. I think there's always got to be a head table of some kind for almost any event. There is a door here right now. This will be, the deck out here is exactly level with the floor. So the handicap issue to get there is taken care of by this ramp, and they come up and go through that door. I guess that's all I have to say about that.
And as far as hours of operations, how early would you expect any event to start, whether it's a wedding or one of the possible educational events?
Well, with a wedding, they do so many things with brides and grooms and, pictures and things, so I don't know, that could start at 9 in the morning. But in terms of music or alcohol or something, we can restrict that to some time limit of some
But as
kind.
far as limiting the earliest start time for any type of event, 8 AM would be reasonable?
Oh, yes, that would certainly be reasonable, yes. Mhm. For any event.
That would mean any activities open to your clients,
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
knowing that setup work by your staff could be done.
Mhm.
So the bathroom area in between the barn and the small catering barn, that's gonna be a new construction?
Yes, that's new.
Okay.
The two new areas are really the deck on the end, the space between the two buildings, the bathrooms, and this,
That covered
this
entry, right?
entrance. Those are the three areas. Did I miss anything, John? You and I talked it over, right?
No, I don't think you did.
Okay.
Are you gonna be doing any lighting in the parking area, the walkways?
Yes, we will. I owned a few shopping centers, so I'm very conscious of how lights have to be and how high and the type that you use so that they don't shine this way. And we would have lighting in the parking lot, not heavy light, just whatever the minimum is for this. And inside of the buildings, there'll be rather significant lighting in there. We're not doing anything else other than making them look attractive, and we might in May, and let's say May and June and September, October, the temperatures could be 60, and we've got an event there, and I'd like to bring it up to 80. So we're going to have some blowers in there that'll bring it up to 10 degrees, but that's about all it'll do. It won't do anything during the winter beyond taking it from about 60 to 70.
Adam, with this type of zoning, will they be required to do a lighting plan?
Yeah, photometric plan would be submitted.
So that's
Sure.
part of the requirement?
We could do that.
So that doesn't need to be in the conditional use?
Mhm.
And that lighting plan is, I assume, details that you cannot.
We don't have it ready yet, but we'll have one. We're working on that right now.
But that would assure that the neighbors aren't gonna have lights spilling out.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Mhm.
Any more questions for Wayne or John?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion amongst the commission?
Well, I'll just point out that obviously this has had a lot of contention. There's certainly many factors to weigh. First and foremost, I look at, we want to overlay a B3 zoning, so I went and pulled up the B3 zoning, and those were some of the questions that I asked. I think it had been pointed out that some of the examples, this doesn't really fit in with the examples that are within the B3 zoning, but there's also not exclusions within the zoning. So that is what the purpose of the conditional use is for, is that the commission here can put restrictions to help reasonably accommodate a business and not put too much of a burden on a business, but then also make it so that it's not, I think the wording is, that it cannot be detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of the community. So I think it's certainly difficult to say that this would absolutely be a benefit to the community, but it's also difficult to say that it wouldn't be a benefit to the community. Because obviously you've done research and looked at, there may be a need for this, and your plans seem to indicate a lot of thought and care about making that it looks nice and it fits well, and it's a good place to be. So it should be, as far as aesthetically and in the, fitting within the neighborhood, it should fit in the neighborhood, but is the type of business appropriate? And I think that's something that we're gonna have to decide and address.
And to the point about considering the safety of the neighborhood, If there are issues with the property, it is within the council's purview to either not renew or pull a liquor license, and that would essentially end the business. So if there is problems that occur, the city does have recourse to rectify.
And I think the same thing is to be said about the noise ordinance. It's, the city has a noise ordinance, and my understanding is that there's no discussion on any exemptions or extensions. I certainly have not heard any discussions on
Not
extensions.
for sound at all, no, we'll just live by the ordinance.
Yeah, and so that, you know, there's a cutoff there that has to be met. So,
So I would like to make the motion for this, knowing that there is a lot of opposition in the neighborhood. I think with many of these conditions should hopefully alleviate some of the issues that were brought forward. So I would like to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for the Ripon Event Barn LLC for the property located at 835 Liberty Street with the conditions listed below, and to recommend to the city council to approve the B3 neighborhood business district overlay zoning for 835 Liberty Street. Conditions would be that the city council approves the B3 neighborhood business district overlay zoning, that Ripon Event Barn LLC acquire and maintain a permanent alcohol beverage license. Hours of operations, the events would be limited to the hours on Friday through Saturday from 8 a.m. until midnight, Sunday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. A minimum of 60 off-street parking stalls will be available. For landscaping, berms and vegetation to block headlights from shining out of the parking area will be installed. Parking area will use a turf-through type paver system. And I believe that's all the restrictions.
I would like to add one more restriction, and that is on the property line with the immediate neighbors, the adjoining neighbors, there is a solid type fence put up.
Okay. So,
Yes, the one neighbor that already has the big trees, that wouldn't make any sense, I don't think. We'd be doing it if they wanted, but that block is already there, and in fact, it's about 3 or 4 or 5 feet over on our property, and I don't intend to make an issue of it.
It's my belief that having a very clear and imposing delineation of your property and where the
Yeah.
events are taking place and the neighbor's property
Sure.
would be good to help alleviate some of the concerns of someone wandering or going into another property to do something unscrupulous.
Yeah.
I understand.
There's no way they can get through that.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's my belief that
Yeah.
having a solid fence
and that would be the properties to the
east.
east.
We'll definitely do the property along Liberty, but I'd want to talk to the other owner, because I don't think they're gonna want it.
You can add subject to waiver by a particular neighbor. But otherwise, your motion is it's a solid fence.
Yes. Thank you, Bud.
So with the addition of a solid fence will be installed between this property and the properties to the east, subject to a waiver from the neighboring property owner.
Written waiver.
If we put up the fence, the only thing I would request is that we have a height limit. I don't want to put in a 12-foot fence.
I specifically just said a solid fence, I didn't call out a height because that can be between you and the neighboring property. If 4 feet is acceptable to the neighboring and
No,
acceptable to
they
you.
probably, if they're trying to block view, it's got to be 6 to 8 feet somewhere in there, and I'd be
Is-
happy with any of that.
Is there any fence ordinance?
There is a height, I think it's 6 or
Side
8
yard.
in
Yeah,
the
side
side
yard.
yard, so I mean,
So
the
we already have an
residential.
ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay,
But I don't think we need to call out the height.
very good. No,
Condition.
that's
I
fine.
don't think so. it would be covered under pre-existing
Right.
ordinance.
So that is my motion.
I have one question. When I met with the planner a couple of months ago, the address of this property, the entire 5¼ acres was always 835
Mhm.
Liberty. She divided the house and made that 835 and then put a new address on the,
Is it still one parcel?
it's, I can't tell, I think it's 2 parcels.
Did we do a CSM to split it?
I don't recollect.
It wasn't a split, to split it, it's all been referenced as 835 on the county's GIS system.
Okay, so I just want to make sure it's not a problem, that's all.
And if,
Doesn't make
if an
any
address
difference.
changes, I assume
Yeah,
this
yeah.
changes with it. Would anyone like to second my motion?
Could you reread the motion?
Absolutely. So to approve the conditional use permit for Ripon Event Barn LLC for the property located at 835 Liberty Street with the conditions listed below, and to recommend to the city council to approve the B3 Neighborhood Business District overlay zoning for 835 Liberty Street. Conditions are city council approves the B3 Neighborhood Business District overlay zoning. They will acquire and maintain a permanent alcohol beverage license. Events to be limited to the hours of Friday through Saturday, 8 AM to midnight, Sunday through Thursday, 8 AM to 9 PM. Minimum of 60 off-street parking stalls. Berms and vegetation to block headlights from shining out of the parking area. Parking area will use a turf-through type paver system. A solid fence will be installed between this property and the properties to the east, subject to a written waiver from neighboring property owners.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Lud, is there any legal issue with that motion?
I see no legal issue with that motion.
Thank you. If there is no more discussion, we will take a roll call vote for this.
Grant,
Yes.
then Kurt,
Yes.
Matthias,
Yes.
and then split, you will abstain, so, okay. Motion carries 3-0.
So next up is that goes to the full city council. Will that be next week, the agenda,
Yes, that will be planned to be put on next week's
for the
agenda.
rezoning?
Okay.
On
And
July 22nd.
if that rezoning passes and you meet the other requirements, then it's going to be
Very
approved.
good, thank you.
Is that
Thank you.
also at 7? 7 o'clock?
7 PM, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Be prepared for a lot of questions and presentation next week. All right. Moving on to our last item, the Public Arts Advisory Council. Adam has put together a proposal for laying that out.
I have. At the previous plan commission meeting, there was the approval of the public arts ordinance that has since been approved by the council. The common council did, in their action to approve that, decide that they would like to see the plan commission form a public arts advisory council to assist with some of the review and just overall management or process of public art, adding it with public art projects. So that was left kind of informally to not like, I didn't have much direction in terms of how to do that. So ultimately, I just said, okay, let's put together something and get it in front of the plan commission. The council's, I believe, just my general understanding of it was this body's responsibility to create this advisory council. So you have the ability to form that in any way you would like. It's my recommendation that you form something with some formality. And this sort of is a small attempt to do that. You can change anything you want on this. Certainly, the scope of this is to, like, the council, this council, so it's not the common council, the advisory council, is to provide advice and recommendations, making sure that they fit in public spaces and comply with the ordinance that was created. In addition to that, there's members, and I put in there up to 5 members. You can certainly do more. I wouldn't necessarily recommend less. But we have organizations on there, Ripon Main Street Chamber. There's a Plan Commission member, so you can do that, or you can say, no, we don't want Plan Commission support or representation on there. And then members of the public or local artists. So you can change any of those numbers. And it's just, you're appointed by the Plan Commission, there's 3-year terms. There's a chairperson, a vice chair. They meet as needed to review proposals that a quorum shall be majority. So if you have 5, 3 consists of a quorum. They can vote, and then kind of just some general duties for what you would assume they could help with. Ripon Main Street is here, Craig. The chamber has expressed interest on serving. So I put those on there as just options. Obviously, a lot of times these things come out of those organizations, so potentially having that representation on it is helpful and sort of guarantees you probably the ability to meet, just because you may have an executive director from there and they may be kind of working through the ordinance with a specific project. So there's some good background there. And then local artists or community members. Again, whatever you want to do with it, you can tell me to revise everything. You can do whatever. There is interest from the public to serve on this. There's been a few artists and people that have said, hey, so I think depending on how we move this forward, we would then have a call to the public for any interested public members to serve on this. That can certainly dictate how you want to create this, or how many members you want on there. I still would advise, you don't want 30 people on a committee. That's not a committee. So it just ultimately up to you all. But I wanted to put this together and put it in front of you.
I just want to start by saying, as the council rep on the Plan Commission, I voted against another committee. I didn't want this advisory committee. I just felt that there's enough committees, and I thought that we could handle the problems that arise by itself. Now, my question is, it says provide advice. So does, anytime public art comes, into the limelight, do we and this advisory committee get involved right away? Or could we, as the Plan Commission, just decide that it's fine?
How I would envision this occurring, right, is there would be an individual artist or an organization that comes forward to the city and says, I want to do a project, right? That project would be forwarded first to this advisory board for review, right? They would then make any recommendations, whether to approve it, to allow it, to whatever. Regardless of those, it will still come to this body for a decision. So it's an initial vetting, I think, to ensure that, from a creativity perspective, those voices are heard, and from a quality perspective, there's other voices being heard. Ultimately, again, it's just advisory. That's how it's spelled out, so
To make
it's
that
not-
very clear,
yeah.
you could add the word, the purpose of the council is to provide non-binding advice.
And
and recommendation.
the way I see it is.
So then there isn't any issue that the thing,
Well, one of my
what we
points,
say
or
goes.
thoughts are, if we get this body and then we double those people, again, like you said, we shouldn't have too many people, because then you have 10 different points of view. So I don't mind, now that I'm seeing how
Yeah.
it goes, if it goes to the advisory commission or committee, and then it comes to us,
Yep.
there's not like too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right, but I see in the event that 3 of those members can't meet for some reason for 6 months, 4 people are out of the city, it could come directly to us if it had to.
Yeah, could. I mean,
But in,
the point of the story is,
The proper
give us
outlook.
your advice.
right,
If you can't, we will move forward,
And we
because
should
we
put
are the
people-
body that is the decision maker.
and we should be putting people on here that we
Would
trust
know,
and value their,
React
Judgment.
and
Basically,
get
public-
a quorum.
yes.
that would be the public input initially for
Right.
anything that would be. I would suggest that we take the member of the plan commission off of this council, if it's coming to.
That
the
advisory.
The
Yes,
advisory
because it's
council.
coming here, yes. I agree with that.
And replace it with
A public?
a citizen member.
Yes.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. And
So up to 3 with the number aiming for 5, what's your reaction to that? Craig, because you might be sitting on this advisory council.
I think let's just give it a try, see how it goes.
See how the number works.
there is one word I would like to change in that section 3, second sentence where membership shall include representatives. I would like that just to be membership may include, in the event that someone from Main Street or someone from the chamber does not want to be on it.
Okay.
We're not tied to them.
The good old shall.
But with this saying that it may include them, the way I interpret that is, the intent is to include them, if at all possible.
So, and what we'll do is we can reach out to those, you know, I'll ask Craig if he wants to be on the advisory council. I
He's
can reach
gonna
out
be
to the
on.
chamber, and then we can put a post out or put, you know, reach out to the public. What we would do then if this passes is, you know, by next meeting, whenever that is, we would bring forward potential people to put on, and this body can then make official, you know, appointments or form the committee, or council,
So we
sorry.
can form and appoint at the same time,
Yeah.
same meeting.
Yeah, same meeting.
I have a question about, I'm imagining that this council won't be meeting so frequently. So does it make sense to maybe extend the term to 4 years, 5 years? 5 years feels like it's maybe too long.
3 years is pretty standard for most committees.
And what I'll just say is, you know, really, this advisory council is being formed, we don't know how this is going to evolve, grow. They could become an advocacy group, they could become a funding mechanism for this as well. So, you know, I think anytime you start committing people to, you know, 5 years or more,
It's a little intimidating.
and you don't know how this is going to potentially kind of grow organically into something more, that it's really not even, I mean, I think the ultimate goal is to have a highly functioning advisory council where you don't even have to bring anything to the planning commission, that they're like, hey, yeah, we got it all figured out, boom, let's go. But ultimately, to start, that's what I would, we can change it if we run into issues, you know.
Yeah, I think you drive people away if you have that commitment too long.
Yeah.
So it's hard enough committing for 3 years, let alone anything more.
And I've found in my tenure as mayor that most of my appointments tend to move before the end of the 3 years. So the people that are willing to serve are oftentimes cherry-picked by other communities for their jobs.
So I have the addition of non-binding may and elimination of plan commission, and then it'll move to three members of the public or local artists.
Would it be wrong to include somebody from like the West End Business District? You know, like maybe instead of the plan commission, maybe somebody from down there. I just hear a lot that they feel like sometimes they're forgotten down there and we're always focused on,
I
The
think
3
that's
blocks of
something
Watson
that,
Street.
as we're appointing people to it, we should
We can
certainly
look
consider
at
it,
that.
but it
Okay.
doesn't need to be written.
No.
sure,
Good
okay.
thought.
And I would recommend with the community member line, just cross out the up to 2 additional if we're changing that shall to may.
Okay, we can do that.
Otherwise, I like it.
The motion is to adopt the, or,
Yeah.
adopt the Public Arts Advisory Council as, with noted changes. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
And I would-
And
I'm
directing it
sure.
coming-
I'm clear on that.
with the understanding it's coming back here, you're gonna get people.
We'll get, we can create this so I can
Okay,
form it.
okay.
And then
That's
give
fine.
people like, this is what we're doing.
Okay,
And then this is what you're
Okay.
signing up for, and then we can put names in later.
okay.
So this
Sounds good.
makes it official, and the next
Yeah.
step is just to get the people.
Yeah.
And I will like to second what John said, that I didn't feel that this council was necessary, but I'm perfectly happy to use it. And take advice from, recommendations from other people as well.
I was worried we'd have too many at one table.
Yeah, and I think this is a good way of separating the tasks. And ultimately, coming back to us, I feel the plan commission's job is to make sure it checks the safety and
Public
the
welfare.
public welfare and structurally sound boxes, whereas this committee or council is doing more of the artistic and aesthetic. That's kind of how I see it. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the Public Arts Advisory Council plan with noted changes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, any project updates, staff reports?
The only thing is you will have to we just did this, but we have to redo the floodplain zoning ordinance again.
So it did say we have to redo it
Yeah,
again?
Yeah, so we'll be bringing that back to you all
Okay.
after last year.
Yeah.
What's driving those changes?
I was
DNR.
driving those changes to the DNR a year after they told us to change our entire ordinance, approved a new firm map for Fond du Lac County. So we essentially have to change one section of what we just did, but the process to change it is like public hearing,
Oh.
it's like a whole thing,
Yeah.
so
And public hearing is here and then just approval at
it goes to the council, but it's just a, it's just a giant, it's like, to change like one word.
Yep. That covers future agenda items, unless there's anything else. Anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second motion.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 7:59.